Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Bennett, one of Aunt Ruth's many nieces and the daughter of her second oldest brother, Bob. I'd like to say I was her favorite niece, but the truth is each of us was her favorite, be it nephew, niece, cousin, brother, sister, or friend. When you spent time with Ruth, she made you believe that you were the most important person in the world to her, and you were. Aunt Ruth was proud of her heritage and oh so proud of her family. She grew up on a farm in Woodland, Alabama, her mom and dad's only daughter. But she had 6 brothers, so she learned early how to stand her ground, to be independent, responsible, and to think for herself. She always told me her childhood was about freedom. She was free to explore the farm and woods, to learn about life from the animals and nature, and to read. She decided she wanted to be a physician, but even though she graduated as a valedictorian of her high school class, there was no money to pay for college. With her mother's encouragement, she wrote to the president of the nearest college, Jacksonville State, and explained her situation. She told the president about her background, her goals and aspirations, that she would work hard and do anything to get her college degree. He called her several weeks later and told her to be at the administration building at Jacksonville State, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the day before the fall semester began. Her brother Fred took her to the bus stop, and she caught the bus, carrying all her belongings in my father's Army duffel bag. She was wearing a feed sack dress made by my grandmother. The president met her in his office and told her he was assigning her to work with a school dietitian in the cafeteria. In return, she would receive room and board, tuition, and books. And so the journey of her life's work began, not out of good luck, but out of her initiative, drive, and determination to become what she knew she could be. Now, some of you are sitting out there thinking, what? She wanted to be a doctor? What's with that? Well, her senior year in college, the physics teacher at the local high school fell ill, and the school approached the college and asked them to provide a physics teacher for that school year. The president went to Aunt Ruth and said, "This year, instead of working in the cafeteria, I want you to teach physics at the local school." She protested, said she was not studying education and did not know how or want to teach. Furthermore, she pointed out that she needed to finish her pre-med coursework so she could go on to medical school. The insightful and insistent president informed her she was a natural teacher and that she would be able to finish her degree and teach that physics class. And he promised her, if she did, he would see to it that she got into whatever medical school she chose. So she accepted the challenge and fell in love with teaching, a profession she was called to and one for which she never had to interview for a job. The spunk and wit that came naturally to her as a result of growing up with 6 brothers came in handy after she finished her master's degree. She told her major professor at the University of Alabama that she wanted to teach in a metropolitan area where she could make a difference in the lives of aspiring scientists. Her professor knew the head of the Atlanta School Board and knew that the physics teacher at Henry Grady had retired. One thing led to another, and the superintendent called and offered Aunt Ruth the job, sight unseen. Fast forward several weeks later to the first day of teacher in service. She walked into the office of the Henry Grady Science Department and introduced herself as the new physics teacher. The department chair, Eugene Sanders, looked up and said, "Well, I was looking for a man." Aunt Ruth evenly replied, "Well, so am I." And so began a lifelong love story with Atlanta students at Henry Grady and Lakeside and Uncle Eugene. Even with her many professional successes, Aunt Ruth always said family was most important, and that in the end, family was what mattered. She was the heart of our family one that included her Kirby, Fincher, Sanders, and Kilgore kin. She was raised in a family of faith. Her father was a Baptist preacher, and that faith stayed with her and made her strong. She was the rock of the family, the glue that held us together in good times and bad. As her parents, brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, and others became ill or died, she was always there to comfort, reassure, offer support and advice. When my own father was in Knoxville, dying in the ICU, my brother and I walked into his room, and his first words were, "When is Ruth coming?" Recently, niece Lydia Ann observed that Miss Ruth helped me through so many times of crisis. I think that's true for all of us, family and friends alike. Her love and support were evident in happier times as well. She used to say her door was always open, and she meant it. Many of her family have stayed under a roof at one time or another. Cousin Farley was possibly the first, traveling from Birmingham on the bus at 5 or 6 to spend a fun-filled week with Aunt Ruth in Atlanta. I remember my oldest cousin, Lawrence, 16 or so, came from South America for some specialized medical tests and stayed with her. His sister Cheryl spent college breaks and holidays with Aunt Ruth while her parents worked overseas. Cousins Jan and Charlene spent many happy days at 1796 Ridgewood while they were in college, as did I while looking for a job or apartment. But Uncle Fred and Aunt Frances' kids and grandkids were perhaps the luckiest. Since they lived in Atlanta, they enjoyed regular sleepovers with Aunt Ruth. While she enjoyed spending time with family individually, she was in seventh heaven when there was a family gathering, happy or sad. Hers was the reassuring, comforting presence at funerals. She was regular at Kirby and Fincher family reunions in Randolph County and loved spending time in Stapleton with Uncle Eugene's family, especially nieces Lydia Ann and little Mary. She made it a point to attend family weddings, if at all possible, and served as the wedding director for my cousin Jan. And she loved to host parties. She and Eugene always had an open house for friends, family, and former students on New Year's Day. And while they had a small, intimate wedding in the little chapel at Glen Memorial, she and Uncle Eugene threw a big shindig at the Emory Conference Center for their 25th anniversary. The greatest times of all were when we came together for Christmases or birthdays. Who could ever forget the party for Uncle Eugene's 100th? In 2006, her still living brothers, Fred, Kelly, Bob, and their wives, her beloved Aunt Essie, and Essie's daughter, Dorothy Fay, as well as a few nieces and nephews, gathered in LaGrange to celebrate Ruth's 75th birthday. What stories were shared that day? By family, but mostly by the master storyteller herself, Aunt Ruth. 5 years later, Kirby's and Sanders gathered at Callaway Gardens for a weekend reunion commemorating her 80th birthday. And later we gathered at her home to celebrate her 85th. And last year we had a small birthday party at Bud Terrace. The last two celebrations had grown to include her extended family of both relatives and special friends. How she loved her Ridgewood Drive family, her Glen Memorial brothers and sisters, Alpha Delta Kappa sisters, and the Decatur Lions. And last weekend, we had planned a virtual birthday party for her 90th, with families sending greetings from around the country. This may seem like a glum note to end on, but actually there's a happy ending. While Aunt Ruth wasn't able to speak as she had before her stroke, she could sing, and sing she did. The first night we spent in the hospital after her stroke, I woke in the morning to her singing an old hymn, Blessed Assurance, along with the choir on TV. Her wonderful caregivers, Deidre and Tish, often played or sang favorite hymns with her, and she sang along. There was joy and beauty living out her last days in her own home. Oh, what a joyful laugh she had. Hers was a life well lived.